Drop of Golden Tarot, and today I am doing a VR response to Janaki at Catomancy. Is that right? Catomancy? Yes. She has a YouTube channel and all the socials kind of thing, like Instagram. I don't know if she mentioned TikTok. She mentioned Pinterest. Anyways, she is a, I'm gonna really flub this up. She's a student doing a dissertation on tarot. And she asked for some community involvement with her questions that she has for her dissertation. So I figured I would participate and answer because that was my whole reason for starting a YouTube channel. So, okay, here we go. I will list her questions below the video. And I will try to answer them all. You'll see me looking to the side sometimes because that is where I do have her list of questions. So, because there's like 6 of them and I don't have them memorized. So, her first question was, what kind of religious upbringing did you have? And I had an Irish Roman Catholic upbringing. I was from a small town in the state of New York, and there was many Catholic churches. There was many churches, period. It was like church bar, church bar, church bar. Growing up, and you could tell what ethnicity people came from by what area of town they lived in. It's not like that anymore, but it was when I was young. So like the Irish people lived on this side and the Italians lived over in this section and so on and so forth. And we all had our own Catholic churches. So we did not go to the Italian Catholic Church. We did not go to the Polish Catholic Church. We didn't go to the Orthodox Greek, Catholic. We went to the Irish Catholic Church. So we went to church every Saturday, because if you go to church Saturday night after 4 o'clock, it counts for Sunday. So we went to church Saturday nights. When I was young, I felt like my dad was devout and very religious. His father had been Catholic. His mother had been a different religion, but converted to marry his dad in the Catholic Church. We did our first communions, we did our confirmations, we took a new name during our confirmations. There's so many similarities in different religions, the more I know about other religions, but we went to Catholic catechism classes every Sunday. It was kind of like, it wasn't just going to class, it was like a whole, what do I say, like routine and habit. We got up, we went to catechism class on Sundays. My dad dropped us off. He went to his parents' house, and then afterwards he'd pick us up, and then we would go to Grandma and Grandpa's and hang out for a while. It was like it was very structured how our weekends were, as far as church Saturday night and catechism class on Sunday, until you, I think once you hit like 9th grade, your catechism classes were in the evening during the week instead. So I would walk from my house, I'd pick up a friend along the way, and we would walk to catechism classes. I remember being very skeptical of the Bible stories I learned, they seemed to contradict themselves because they were not well explained to me. When I asked questions, I was shut down very quickly. It led me to go to church with other people, like other friends, but there was nothing really of interest. I went to church because I was told to go to church because I had to go to church. I did all the things that I was supposed to do because that's what we did. As soon as my sister became old enough to drive, my parents were petitioned to allow us to go to church by ourselves on Sundays. And that was approved for a while. Unbeknownst to us, the envelopes that my mom put the money in, we had no clue about like tithes and offerings or any of that kind of stuff. So we took that money and went and bought breakfast and didn't go to church. And then at the end of the year, when the church sent my parents a report of donations and they didn't have them because they were sending them with us, yeah, there was some reckoning there. Which I don't think I caught a lot of heat for because my sister was older. So I think I got away with a lot because I wasn't like the leader of getting away with things. So growing up, it was always like my dad had wanted to be a priest, but he wanted to have a family. So it was like he had a family, but it was kind of like us as kids knowing that like the religion was like super important to my dad, but it never felt super important to us. I wore a cross because it was pretty jewelry. I went to church because it was expected, because that's what everybody in like my community circle did. Even my non-Catholic friends, like I grew up in an area where I had friends of other religions, but they still went and did their church stuff. So yeah, it wasn't like a big deal. You just did it and then you played, because that's kind of the Catholic way. You go to church on Sundays and then you play. We went to church on our religious holidays. During Lent, my dad went to church every day. We often gave things up for Lent. So that's kind of like the upbringing that I had, was that very traditional. You don't read the Bible yourself. You listen to what the priest tells you. You go to church. If you have done things that you're not supposed to do, you go to confession, you confess your sins, you say your Hail Marys, your Our Fathers on your rosary, and you're done. You're good to go. So as far as like a bigger scope of things, we never really got into religious talk in my family. We didn't have like a religious study at home. We were never told to like not take God's name in vain or anything like that. I did tell my sister, I was mad at my sister once and said, damn you to hell. And my dad got on me for that. Like, don't you do that. Don't you say that. But other than that, like, I remember being inconvenienced because we had to go to church on vacation and it was like an hour. I know if church services took more than like 45 minutes, my dad would get a little punchy. No, sorry, clicked my phone. My dad would get a little punchy. He didn't want like church services to be longer than that. Sometimes we moved around the time that we went to church, depending upon which priest was saying church mass, because if there was singing, like with Father Norbert, I believe, there was singing and it made church last an hour, and that was like way too long as far as my dad was concerned. I hadn't gone to Catholic church in years and years and years, and I went to a funeral that had a mass, and I could still say all the parts. I could still stand and kneel at the appropriate places. It was just so ingrained from childhood that it was super easy to do. So that was my religious upbringing. Once I got out on my own, I did not go to church for the longest time. I didn't really have a belief. After I had my first child, which I was a single mom, I thought I should. So I did go to church on occasion. I did have my child baptized in the Catholic Church because I didn't want her to be like in child purgatory or limbo because she hadn't been baptized. So there was like some indoctrination there that was not like heavily spoken about, but really belief windows that I had adopted that I had never looked at or questioned the adoption of. So I did that for a long time. When my oldest was in kindergarten, she went to Catholic school. And then I met my ex-husband, which of course was not my ex-husband at the time. I converted to a what about it? Like a fundamentalist Christian religion, Mormonism, in order to try to find some traditional stability, I think, in my life. And in the meantime, I had been practicing tarot and doing witchcraft, and that was okay with my family. That was never frowned upon. That I was never told not to do that. But Mormons are like, no, that's a hard no. And so when I moved from New York to Utah, well, I moved to Idaho, and then when I got married, I moved to Utah, and my tarot cards came up missing. So, and I didn't question it. It was, and so I put that stuff away for a long time. So, that kind of leads me into like the second question, which is like, what was your first exposure to tarot and how did you get your first deck? So my first exposure to tarot when I was 15 years old, I was hanging out in the mall. I had a job in the mall. I'd gotten like a temporary seasonal job being the Easter Bunny of all things. And having little kids sit on my lap and take pictures with the Easter Bunny. It was a horrible costume. It like just plastered you in sweat. It was awful. But I started hanging out at the mall and getting to know people at the mall through that. And there was a shop in the mall that had metaphysical items along with like tobacco stuff. And I think they were mainly like a tobacco store, or maybe they weren't at the time. Anyways, they had metaphysical things there. And there was a guy behind the counter that worked that I thought was really cute. So I went into the store a lot. And then I got to know the people in the store just from hanging out there and became friends with them. And I was very interested in Dungeons and Dragons, so I played a lot of D&D. They played D&D. So there was a lot of commonalities there and talking to people and making friends there. And I was in the store one day, and one of the people who was working in the store gifted me a tarot deck. And so I had, looking back, I'm like, did I know tarot? I don't think I really knew much what it was. I saw the cards, I think. I'm pretty sure I've seen people lay out spreads. He may have read for me already. I can't remember. But I remember him giving me the deck. And the deck that he gave me was the Aquarian Tarot. So this is the deck that was, so this is not the exact deck. I mean, this is the deck that he gave me, but that deck got lost. I found this deck on eBay after my divorce, And it is a well-used, well-loved deck, so much so that it could be my original deck if I wasn't sure that my original deck is in the dump somewhere. But like, so this is my introduction to tarot. So it was the Aquarian Tarot. And at that time, this person, Cal, told me that I was the Page of Cups. And that this guy that I liked was the, what did he say? He was the Knight of Knight of Swords. Anyways, whatever the indication was, he was going to break my heart. So he gave me the deck and he told me to learn how to use it and to kind of figure it out, and that it would help me. And here's my, so all I had to go off of was this little instruction booklet, which is just like the little white book, but not even. It's like a little pamphlet. It gives very little. It gives an upright and reverse meaning. It teaches you the Celtic cross, which I learned and did a lot. When I had questions, I would go back to the store. I would ask my questions. I was taught things from there. I started playing D&D with this group of people and was taught things from there. I was also kind of introduced to witchcraft from there and taught some witchcraft. I read with that deck for myself. I read with that deck for other people from the age of 15 to until I probably got married at 28. I think is when I got married, 28, 29. So that was my only deck, and I read with it all of that time. And so that was my first introduction and the first tarot deck. And I've lost my screen. Yeah. So that was it. The third question is, when did tarot become a more important part of your practice? And when, if ever, did you stop being a skeptic? What was your moment of tarot conversion like? And I don't, as a 15-year-old, I don't think that I was skeptical at all. I hung out with this group when I was 15, 16. And then certain people from that group until I was like 17, 18, where other people had, like, I didn't have as much contact with. And then when I was like 20, I like got a lot of contact with the same group of people, did more witchcraft stuff, did more tarot stuff. And there was, I think the introduction was so long, like so young, that, and there was an amount of naiveness. Is that word, naiveness, naivety? Anyways, I was pretty naive. As worldly as I thought I was, and the situations that I allowed myself to get into that I learned a lot from, there was still a part of me that was very naive, very believing of people, very believing of what people told me, their stories, just not able to see any deception in people at all. So I don't think that I was skeptical. Like, skepticism was not part of that beginning journey. When I came back into tarot after I divorced, that's where there was some skepticism. It was something I hadn't done a long time. Okay. So there was this indoctrination with the fundamental Christian that anything related to tarot and witchcraft and stuff was bad. It was from the devil, from Satan. It had to be avoided at all costs. It was a risk to your soul and to your being with your family forever. And a lot of threats that were posed as promises. So when I got divorced, I was already on my way out of the Mormon religion. The more that the Mormon religion railed against love of anybody other than two Mormons getting together and having eternal families. That's kind of how it felt to me. Like, they weren't, I mean, Mormons say that they're not, but they are like, of course they are anti-gay, but they're also like anti anybody who is not Mormon. It really feels that way living in a Mormon community. So the more they push that agenda, and then started pushing other agendas that I never agreed with. And when I first got married and I first started attending the church and joined that church, those were not even things that they really talked about. I'm sure it was buried in the doctrine somewhere, but they never talked about it. And then as they started talking about it and started pushing it, I was like, I don't agree with that. That's just not who I am. I don't agree with that. And so I was already on my way out there. I was towing the line to try to save my marriage. But once it was apparent that the marriage was over, I was free again to start examining what my beliefs were. And I think one of the first things that I did was pick up a tarot deck. I did not pick up the Aquarian right away. I looked for it, couldn't find it. I picked up a different one. So this is my first return to tarot. And it was a horrible one, let me tell you. I picked up the Viking tarot. And I say it was horrible. I shouldn't say that. One, it's not a terrible deck, but it was hard for me to read this deck in the way that I had learned tarot. It doesn't quite match up. So, I ended up getting another deck. I got on Pinterest and found another deck. Found lots of decks that I loved and ended up getting this deck here. And as I'm doing this and getting these new decks, there is that sense of skepticism. So I end up with the Prisma Visions Tarot. And I start working with Prisma Visions. I believe I also got the Gilded Tarot. And I worked with them side by side and journaled with them with what I saw in the cards and with what the cards made me feel. And then I would go through and look at their like books and see if there was anything I was missing. And then I would write about times in my life that the meaning of the cards were reflected in that time in my life to kind of help me remember back. And as I was doing this, I was skeptical. What do I want to say? I was older. I was, had more knowledge. I understood that people could be deceptive, that people could believe things that weren't true, which is something I didn't know at the age of 15, that people could believe things that weren't true. I understood that people could profess to believe things that they did not because they had an agenda, which was a foreign concept to me when I was 15. I just learned that there was more nuance. The world was more nuanced. People were more nuanced. That, and that things weren't always what they seemed to be. So I got back into my tarot journey with a bit of skepticism. But I started journaling with it and started using it. But I was almost scared to ask hard questions because I was scared to know that it wouldn't answer them. And then I found the El Goliath Tarot. And if you don't, I'm going to end up with a million decks on my desk again. If you've ever watched my channel, you know the El Goliath Tarot. Oh. Right on the top, I have the yes and no cards that come with it. And I'm like, do I have just the... Oh, no. I didn't know. There is some like more oracle type cards. I didn't know if they were on top or not. So this is the El Goliath Tarot. And as I started working with this deck, and I did start with this deck by journaling also. I had journaled through my other decks. The pencil drawings really captured me on this deck in a walkthrough that I watched. And so I bought it. And I bought it within 5 minutes of starting to watch that walkthrough, and then I went back and finished watching the walkthrough. And this deck was probably the first deck back into my tarot journey that I asked hard questions to, and received answers. And so I went from skeptical to tarot can give me insights into my concerns, my feelings, my thought processes, and my belief windows. There. More of like a psychoanalytical part of tarot. Then I took my Prisma Visions on vacation with me, and I read for other people. And I was really nervous as I started doing it. I kind of started doing it with the younger family members as just kind of like entertainment. And then older family members wanted readings, and they were coming out good. Like they were coming out on. And then I had somebody who wanted a reading, and they said it was a general reading, but they had a question in their mind that they did not share with me. And up to this point, there was still like this bit of skepticism, because they're like, how much of this advice is the cards, and how much of it is me having lived this many years now, interpreting the cards into advice I think people need. So this person says, I don't have a question. I just like a general reading. I said, oh, okay. And I was nervous about it, but I was like, okay. So I did it. And as I did the reading, he and his wife were there, and they started exchanging glances and nods. And there was things in the cards that did not make sense to me. And I was like, how am I going to fit this in with a general reading? Because this doesn't make sense to me. But I was like, well, I'll just maybe be exposed for fraud, but I'll just tell him what the cards are saying. And I did. And it made sense to them because he had a specific question that I was unaware of. And as we went through the reading, and then there was just one card that that he said he wasn't quite understanding how it fit in. So we clarified that card. And once we clarified it, it kind of doubled down on what it was saying and then expanded the double down. And then he was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And then I was like, yeah, I do remember this feeling of the cards can work. How they work, I don't know, but they can work. And you just have to go with that. Go with the fact that they do work. And so that was kind of my conversion back into using tarot even more for myself in ways of looking at situations and outcomes and knowing that I was not just seeing what I wanted to see and reading what I wanted to read or reading what I wanted to hear, that the cards actually had things to tell me and things to watch out for, and they could give me guidance in steps that I was taking. That was it. So I think that's that full question. Oop, my computer shut off. Hold on. Let's see. So, okay, that was my moment of tarot conversion the second time. Oh my gosh, I'm taking so long. I'm so sorry. Okay, so question number 4 is, when did you start reading for others or start to read for clients, and why? Or if not, have you ever thought about it? Okay, so I did used to read for people all the time when I was between that 15 and 28 years old. I would read for anybody if they wanted a reading. I had a very specific practice in how I read the cards. Is that a question later? No, it's not. But I did have a very specific practice in how I read the cards. I had my cards wrapped in silk because that's what I was taught, that they had to be wrapped in silk to protect themselves from negative energy. They were then kept in a box. I cleansed my cards by tapping, shuffling, knocking. I did let whoever the querent was cut the deck so that their energy could come in. But I did have to have my cloth spread. I had to have like some kind of like ritual that surrounded the tarot. Then I had that hiatus, and then when I came back to it, I started doing the same sort of things that I had when I was younger, where I had a ritual and they had to be wrapped, and then I was on Pinterest and like following pins to different decks, which led me to like blogs and that sort of thing, and all these ideas, like you have to have a crystal with your deck, and you should be sleeping with your new deck, and you should be doing this with your deck, and you should be doing this for reading. And so I started doing all of the things that I was told I should be doing. So I slept with my new decks, I put crystals in, and I slept with them under my pillow, and I did a whole bunch of things. And then after I got the El Goliath Tarot and things started really clicking, I realized I didn't need any of that. I didn't need any of the ritual. I don't think I ever slept with El Goliath. I didn't need to sleep with it. It just clicked. And then all my other decks, they either clicked right away or I had to sit down and study with them to get them to click, because like the symbology wasn't as apparent to me, or maybe the creator's meaning was a little switched or changed or whatever, so I'd have to spend time with them. But those decks that are very apparent right from the beginning, I can just pick them up and read them. I don't need to have them wrapped. I don't need to cleanse them on a regular basis. I don't personify my decks. They don't have feelings. They're pieces of paper. They I don't believe in that I have like spirit guides that are interpreting or telling me about them. They are just cards that have symbols that mean things to humanity because we're all interconnected and our energies interconnect. And I believe that's how tarot works. I believe it works on that interconnected energy. And I believe that the things that we consider magic today will be science in the future. I think that when I look back at things that were in the past that were considered magic and are now scientifically explained, and I believe that that will happen with the things that we consider magic today. I think that there are just unknown or undiscovered areas of science, that there is energy that is not fully understood, or maybe it's understood by like scientists that that we can't understand their thinking. I can't understand their thinking because I'm not educated enough to. That there's some sort of theories, I'm sure, that scientists are working on that explain this interconnectivity of people and thoughts and consciousness. And I think tarot is a tool that helps you direct those thoughts, those parts of your brain that you may not always use, but everybody's capable of using. So that's kind of what I feel about tarot now. So I did read for people, and then I didn't, and now I'm back to I will read for somebody if they ask me to. I don't advertise that I read, mostly because I don't have, my life is not such that I have dedicated time to do readings for people. And so I wouldn't want to get a client list and not be able to produce readings in a timely manner. So I don't. That's why I don't do that. I rarely, well, there are circumstances that I would charge for a tarot reading, but mostly the people that I read for are friends and family, and I don't charge. So if I know you well and we have a connection between us, and it's not like an every constant request, then I would not be apt to charge. But if I have somebody who's going to constantly request readings, that's different, because then it takes time and energy to do that. It's not just every once in a while thing. So could I picture myself reading for others and charging? I have thought about it. I have considered paying for like a booth at a fair to do that or something like that. I worry about two things. One, making my money back from paying for a booth. And two, the community that I live in. And while I don't think I'm as closeted as I was when I first started coming back into my tarot practice and stuff, I still don't think that it would be well accepted in my neighborhood if I was blatant about it. And my community is small enough that if I were to locally advertise or get a booth or start reading, it would become a known thing. And I don't want it to be an issue where it affects my kids or other parts of my life because of the fundamental Christianism, I don't even know if that's a word. But because of that, I don't want it to become an issue. So I've held back from doing that. If I lived somewhere else, I would probably be a little bit more open about that. but because of where I live and my need at this point of my life to avoid I don't want to say avoid opposition, but avoid, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. To avoid outrage, to avoid judgment that could affect me in not just my personal life, but in my areas of my professional life, in the work and the thing that keeps the roof over my head and the food on the table. I have concerns, and maybe they are not well-founded, but looking at other things that I have seen in this community and things that I've personally witnessed or been exposed to or have endured from this community in general, it's not something I'm willing to risk, and it has reinforced that belief window of the closed-mindedness and the ostracism and I'm already ostracized, so it's not the ostracism, but it's the retaliatory mentality that would make people come after you in other areas of your life and feel like that they are doing it for your own good. And that's terrifying. So I don't really do that around here. That's why. Question 5, we're on 5 now, is what are some of your qualities from your background that make you a good reader? That is, what do you bring to the table as a reader, and what do you think your tarot superpower is? Qualities that I bring to the table is I have lived a half of a century, a little bit more than that. So I have a lot of experience now that I didn't when I was younger. And I can see things as more nuanced. And I think that I can use tarot in a way that that you don't feel locked in to a certain outcome, that you can use it in a way that helps you make better decisions. And I think that I've seen enough of humanity, the goodness and the horribleness of it now, to have a more measured approach in how I give and receive information. So I think that I'm good at explaining things. When I'm one-on-one with somebody, I think that I can word things well so that it doesn't produce an extreme reaction when it should not. That things can be done calmly, and that things can be understood and absorbed in a way that doesn't cause somebody to panic. I think maybe that just having that kind of worldview and have seen a lot of things will do that. And I think that does it for a lot of people. So question 6, let's see if I can count on my fingers. 6. When did you get into TarotTube, and what's your relationship with tarot and social media? Okay, so got divorced, got back, got a first deck again, got a second and third deck. I think I was maybe and I wasn't super happy with the Viking Tarot. Was very happy with Prismavision. Gilded Tarot was just more of like a learning deck. It wasn't like Be Still My Beating Heart. I love the artwork, sorry. But it was a good learning deck. It was the closest I wanted to get to a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. I did not enjoy the imaging, the coloring, or anything on a Rider-Waite-Smith. So my first dabble into Tarot Tube was looking at deck reviews. I was going, okay, I want another deck. What deck do I want? And I don't even know if El Goliath was the 5th deck. It might have been further down. But I think it was the first deck that I watched a walkthrough of. I saw the deck on on Pinterest. I think that's what happened is I started seeing decks that I was interested on Pinterest, but after getting burned by the Viking deck and had only seen like 5 images and thinking that that was one for me and realizing it wasn't, I went to Tarot Tube YouTube. I actually went to Google and Googled in like deck reviews and found that people had live reviews on YouTube, and that's where I started. From there, I think I went into and found like Katie Flowers. How many of you found Katie Flowers? I love Katie Flowers. Still love her. I still watch her book reviews and book channel because I just love her points of views, and I love her openness about mental health, and I love her openness about examining biases. So I love watching her. And I eventually started a YouTube channel just because I wanted to connect, because there wasn't a lot of people where I live. So I wanted to see if I could do it as a connection, because I saw people VRing. And then I think I realized that maybe I came into it too late, that there wasn't a lot of like back and forth telephone calls types things that I had thought that there was from watching older videos. So I just decided to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And that's kind of how I run my YouTube channel. I respond to things when I want to. If I'm excited about a deck, I'll show it. Yeah. I do have an Instagram, and it is all tarot. Every once in a while you might see a picture of my dog or something, or fountain pens. Yes, because I like fountain pens too. So I do things that I want to do when I want to do them, because I want to do them because they bring me joy. And those are my purposes for doing things in life now, is to keep a roof over my head, keep food on the table, help my kids understand the world and that their place in it shouldn't be limited, and to find some happiness and joy. So those are my responses. And Catamancy said she was going to have more VRs as part of her dissertation to get more information, and I look forward to participating. I will link her original video below. If you want to participate too, you can go like and subscribe to her channel. If you're liking what you see here, feel free to like and subscribe to me. I am going to try to be more regular. I did make myself a bullet journal to try to keep myself on track of my goals. So that's it. This has been Ray at Drop of Golden Tarot. I hope that you are having a great summer, and we will see you later. Bye-bye. Oh, stay safe, stay healthy, and be happy. Bye-bye.